It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network on a Wednesday night from chilly downtown Columbia. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes. Good to have you with us. Hope you've had a great day. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com, on Twitter @SportsTalkSC. If you can't get us over the airwaves, you lose us for one reason or another. You can find us in a variety of ways, including our live Periscope on Twitter. You can also get our YouTube stream at our YouTube channel, Sports Talk SC. Make sure you stay with us wherever you happen to be moving this afternoon. All right, we will take your calls. If you didn't get through last night, you still want to talk about the national championship game and the aftermath, 800-956-7266. So people are leaving USC and Clemson today at Clemson.
Is there a plague or something?
It was it's called money. At Clemson, the players began dropping one after another, announcing on Twitter that they're headed to the draft. Who do we have leaving? Trey Lamar, Dexter Lawrence, and Mullins. Yes, he had three defensive players announced. Nothing of a surprise there. That was all expected.
Yeah, I think Mullen, especially after the game he had in the national championship game, he was named the defensive MVP. Lamar, kind of the same thing. He was a finalist for the Butkus Award. Plenty of the accolades for him. And Lawrence, I think after the Osterine suspension for the playoffs and then possibly a subsequent suspension that could be added on for next year, it really was a slam dunk for him to leave for the league. And really, it's a bittersweet end for Lawrence. And again, you know, we're getting more from the Gamecock fans who are saying things like, oh, don't forget your Osterine when you go to the National Football League. And I'm just like, you know, guys, come on. And we're even getting some more people who are talking about, you know, why haven't we heard some answers and why are you not answering asking the right questions and why we haven't heard anything? Listen, they got their medicine. They got their suspension. And you know what? They won anyway. So, like, from that perspective, if you're a Gamecock fan and you're still obsessed about Osterine, then you're alone in the world, because at this point, it really doesn't matter what happened. They'll figure it out by the end of the offseason and they'll move on. And
they'll hire a private investigator, because if you're Dabo Swinney, you're a little concerned because you want to know where that stuff came from.
Of course.
And who brought it in into the training room or whatever.
And these three guys are obviously, you know, the first of many. We're expecting, obviously, to hear from Cleveland Ferrell by the end of this process, Austin Bryant. I don't think that there's anybody else on the horizon. Maybe Simmons, maybe, if that could possibly be one. But I think after those two, you're looking at possibly the end of the road, at least for the early departures.
If you're an upperclassman and you know you've got a good high draft grade, why not go out while you're on top? You know, you come back and maybe, you know, something happens. I thought we could win 2 in a row and you didn't pull it off. It's good to leave while you're on top.
So you look at Clemson's defense for next year, and of course, I'm not adding in newcomers. I'm just looking at who's left after these departures. And I mean, you look at your defensive front now. I'm assuming that Ferrell is not coming back, but I haven't deleted him yet because he hasn't announced anything. But you got Xavier Kelly, you got Xavier Thomas, you got KJ Henry, you got Darnell Jeffries, Niles Pinckney, Jordan Williams, Justin Foster, Logan Rudolph among your front.
And Henry, keep in mind, was redshirted, so he will get the year back.
You got your linebackers like Mike Jones. You've got Jamie Skowski. Shaq Smith will get optimum chance. Isaiah Simmons will have a chance to either at the nickel or a linebacker spot to stand out. Then your secondary should not going to say, well, it should be even better,
right?
Because guys like Mario Goodrich, A.J. Terrell, Lee Anthony Williams, Kyler McMichael, Tanner Muse should be back. I don't think anybody expects him to leave.
No.
Denzel Johnson should be back. Nolan Turner. Kayvon Wallace is one to keep an eye on as a possible.
I don't know if they played well. I don't know if anybody at the safety position played well enough this season to be considered for
I'm just talking about in terms of age and thinking about moving on. So that's kind of what it looks like on the defensive side before you add in newcomers or guys who were redshirted who didn't appear on the two deep this season.
And they did add a lot at that safety position too, from that perspective.
Absolutely.
So they're going to be very fortified from a depth standpoint.
All right, from the USC standpoint, comings and goings on the coaching staff. Coming in is Thomas Brown, former Georgia running back, former Georgia assistant, offensive coordinator, running backs coach at Miami most recently. A native of Tucker, Georgia. He is coming in to be the running backs coach. He's going to be paid $300,000 annually. He gets a one-year deal. That's all he signed up for. The term of his contract is from today through May 31 of 2020. He's got a bunch of incentives built into his contract as well that would pay him more if the Gamecocks do well. He comes as I said, the running backs coach under Mark Richt, played for Mark Richt, a teammate of South Carolina's offensive coordinator, Brian McClendon, when they were at Georgia, so relationship there. And I see this as a good move. Bobby Bentley is being shifted to tight ends. Pat Washington is not being retained, so he is being let go. Bobby Bentley is apparently a coach without a position. He has a position as quarterbacks, but he's not going to coach quarterbacks while Dan Werner is there, and I guess while his son is the quarterback. So they move him to tight end and still rely on him for his recruiting prowess, which is pretty good. Brown, see, to me, maybe I'm just a simpleton thinking about this, but I think the best coaches are those who are coaching the position they actually played.
Yeah.
They have some innate knowledge about how the position should be handled the proper way, especially if you were a good player as Thomas Brown was.
I don't know. I mean, let me put you this way. Connor Shaw was going to coach tight ends at Furman. What does he know about playing tight end? Really not much.
Yeah, but I mean, I hate to say it, coaching tight ends, that's sort of a throwaway position. That's more of a you need to be a good recruiter.
Well, that's like
if you're going to coach tight ends.
That's like what Kyle Krantz was on this staff. He was coaching outside linebackers and a secondary special teams coach. They're there because they are recruiters. He is basically, his position coach is not tight end. His position coach is in-state recruiting and in-state relationships and making sure that those things are fortified for the future of Gamecock football.
Well, when it comes to Bobby, in-state might not be his strength because he burned some people during his time at Burns in terms of beating them pretty badly and running up scores, and those memories are still sticking with some people. But he's done well in the Charlotte area. In Tennessee, he has been the front guy for them in recruiting in Tennessee.
A little bit in North Carolina, too.
Yes, Charlotte. Yeah. I think that's still in North Carolina. Last time I checked.
We haven't annexed it yet.
Also, Eric Wolford gets a contract extension, a 2-year extension. His contract now runs through December 31 of 2021. His base salary remains at $400,000 a year. His outside compensation goes up $100,000, so he gets basically a $100,000 raise. And Ray Tanner told us today that Wolford was not actively seeking another job, but people were kind of feeling him out. There might have been some opportunities starting to creep up for him outside of USC, and they wanted to keep him and make sure that they keep him happy and keep him with the Gamecocks.
I don't like the fact that Washington is the casualty here because I think he really didn't do anything wrong. I think it was more of the deficiency at the running back position, which created the need to add Brown, and the fact that they valued Bentley more than Washington on the staff. They basically put him in that position, and he's kind of the odd man out. I liked him just because he had real good roots from Kentucky and Missouri. He had done great jobs there. Also was at Kansas State, Mississippi State, Southern Miss, so a well-traveled guy, and he's been an assistant in the FBS since 1989, also a decade on the staff at Tennessee.
The only reason he's out is because Thomas Brown was available.
Right.
If Miami doesn't fire their whole offensive staff, I think he's still there.
Right.
But, that's why I say sometimes you retain a guy because of who's available or who's not available.
And the rumored chopping block involving Lance Thompson still has not come to pass. We asked Ray Tanner about that. He says that there's still no chance, there's still no changes at this point from that perspective, but does not rule out something else happening before the end of the offseason.
According to my notes, and I try to keep up with which recruiters are recruiting which players, USC signee Kevin Harris was a Pat Washington recruit, as was tight end signee Travion Kenyon, according to my notes. So that's a couple of pickups he apparently contributed to in a big way.
But they're already signed. They can't go anywhere.
That's correct, yes.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
I have no idea how, at least last night, how this would have been bumped out of the first segment without us even talking about it. But obviously the football stuff took precedence. But a fantastic basketball game last night at Colonial Life Arena. The Gamecocks are 2-0. Who saw that coming after a road start at Florida and then a home contest against the number 14 team in the nation? And somehow, some way, the Gamecocks are 2-0 in the SEC and back to the 500 mark overall. They beat Mississippi State 87-82 in overtime, and what can only be referred to from here on out, Corn, as the Mike Kotsar game.
It was a really good game. Both teams played relatively well, shot it well. Turnovers were limited. South Carolina
and the refs
came back and won the rebounding battle. You mentioned Kotsar. He was fantastic all night long. The Kotsar that we saw flashes of as a freshman who sort of drifted away last year and struggled some this year, he showed a lot of confidence. You'll hear from Frank Martin later on tonight talking about his confidence level now is very high. He's just such a laid-back guy. It's hard to pull that out of him, but they've been able to push that button here of late. And his line last night was 10 of 18, 5 of 5, 9 rebounds, 25 points. That's a career high, couple of assists. And I tell you, Frank Martin told us about 3 weeks ago when they were still kind of he said, this team is getting better. He said, this team is getting better. And now it's still early, but, you get Missouri coming in on Saturday. I would hope there'd be a big crowd.
Should win.
They could be 3-0 before they hit the road.
Well, here's the interesting part. If people are a little bit older, they can remember an Eddie Fogler team, the only South Carolina team to ever win the SEC title regular season, 1997. That team started off losing in Charleston Southern and UNC Asheville, and then ended up in the middle of the year ranked number 2 in the country.
Yeah.
So it can happen. But I will say this. When you see a guy like Ben Howland, who's a great coach, great student of the game, and he prepares his team to play South Carolina. And then when Kotsar comes out, his whole game plan just blown to bits because nobody figured 25.5 rebounds out of Coach. At one point, didn't we see almost a triple team every time down on Chris Silva?
Well,
it seemed to be.
The one thing that I was worried about is that it seemed like Kotsar was having such a hot game, especially in the second half, and he was on the bench for a significant portion of the latter part of that second half. I'm like, dude, why is Kotsar on the bench? Something I never thought I'd hear. And the one thing I tried to mention to earlier, the refs let him play. And when you see that in a game with how physical South Carolina plays on defense, they're going to be able to do a lot more effectively at the other end.
That's a good thing for South Carolina when the refs keep the whistles in their pockets. All right, let's hit some phone calls. We got a busy show for you tonight. Buddy Pugh will be here in our second hour.
Clemson hoops tonight as well against Syracuse.
Clemson at Syracuse tonight, tipping off at
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
The Carrier Dome that has no air conditioning.
And let me mention, too, they don't need it tonight, I'm sure. Other basketball around the state tonight. Well, that's it. Just Clemson at Syracuse. Got a big slate tomorrow night. Clemson at Syracuse tonight. As far as the rest of the ACC tonight, you have got, what is tonight, Wednesday? Virginia Tech at Georgia Tech, Louisville at Pittsburgh, Virginia at Boston College, and Miami at Florida State. Last night, Duke beat Wake Forest, and North Carolina won at NC State. Big disappointment there for the Wolfpack. In the SEC tonight, Vanderbilt at Georgia, Auburn at Ole Miss, and Florida at Arkansas. Last night, Kentucky beat Texas A&M. Tennessee hammered Missouri. You know about South Carolina. And who won that Alabama-LSU game?
LSU.
LSU beat Alabama. Okay, there you go.
I will say this. One thing we want to keep our eye on to see if the NCAA takes care of their big brethren. Because Justin Fields and Ohio State have asked for a waiver for him to be immediately eligible. Let's see how this one
based
goes.
On?
Well, we don't know.
I mean, what's his waiver based on? Is it?
Because
they're Ohio State and everybody else isn't. That's the way Shea Patterson's got approved at Michigan.
Hey, listen, they approved Josh Belk
for
South Carolina, so who knows? If you got a good lawyer and you got a good argument. All right, let's hit the phones. 800-956-7266. Billy in Somerville, you're up first tonight here on Sports Talk. How are you?
Hey, Phil. Good. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm okay. I got a couple of questions and a comment, and then I'll hang up and listen.
Okay.
The first question is, after the Carolina-Florida game and the last second dunk with Silver, do you think that could have been some kind of consider? Because really, they looked like they were dead in the water for the first couple of games, and after that game, it kind of looked like it woke it up, and maybe are finally coming around. Second comment I gotta say is, as far as with Pro, it's really starting to tip me off because it seems like he's a homer as far as a Clemson fan. Because Connor Shaw was the quarterback, and you can get mad at me. You can get mad at me all you want, but Connor Shaw was the quarterback, and quarterbacks know everything when it comes to football, inside and out. And for you to make that comment to say that I don't understand why Connor Shaw is being a tight ends coach. How many quarterbacks have been safeties in the NFL and end up being defensive players and know everything? Every time somebody like Phil or somebody makes a comment about Carolina, you got some smart-ass comment to make, and I'm getting tired of it. And as far as college football stuff is concerned, I'm done. Quit making comments about Carolina that you think you're smarter than everybody else because you're a homer player.
Was that directed toward me, I'm guessing?
I think he burned all three of us to some degree. He said pro.
He said pro.
But you were the one that hammered Connor Shaw for being a tight ends coach, indicating that
he was a tight end coach for every little bit of 3 months, for the record.
Actually, less than that, right?
2 months
before he moved on.
I think that Manny Diaz was coach at Temple for about the amount of time that Connor Shaw was a tight end coach.
Now, the point is, in today's football, and listen, this isn't coming from us. I've had coaches tell me this. When it comes to putting your staff together, your offensive coordinator, your defensive coordinator better be good coaches. Your defensive line coach had better be a good coach. Everybody else better be able to recruit. Not saying that you don't have to be a good coach at every other position, but especially depending on the offense that you're running today with the spread, the tight end has been devalued. The fullback, that would be me. I'd be a fullback coach today because the fullback is never used.
I'm not trying to sit here and say that Connor Shaw did not have the acumen or ability to be a tight end coach, but it's almost like asking your head chef to be a server in a restaurant.
Yeah. All right, thank you for the call. By the way, I want to mention this too. I don't know anything, not at all, but 2 years ago when Clemson had a celebration, Dan Brooks announced his retirement at the celebration as defensive line coach. You look at the Clemson staff, think about Robbie Caldwell, veteran coach, been around a long time. He's got lot of rings at Clemson now. It's been, and this has been talked about for years, but Robbie keeps coming back. You just wonder, and they kept that quiet about Dan Brooks until it was announced that day. You just wonder if there could be something happening along those lines. Maybe not.
People were lamenting Clemson's offensive line recruiting until they got Will Putnam right at the end of the early signing period, and maybe that could have been just a little last feather in the cap for him.
All right, let's hit it back up on the phones. We go to only one way to follow that call, and that's with Glenn in North Charleston. Howdy, Glenn.
Oh, believe me, I'll be a lot more tame.
Thank you.
I love how I can be called a Clemson homer when I've never called Clemson my home ever, but that's okay. Go ahead, Glenn.
Well, you're okay. Don't worry about it.
I'm
it's
not.
Only
I'm
game,
fine. What do you got?
Well, I was wondering, we was lucky to get Debo. Is there anybody y'all see in the recruiting deal that, unless you all got to wait till spring game and look at him on the field, but otherwise, can you all see a talent coming that's, like the caliber of Debo Samuel?
Well, you didn't think that Debo was going to be a big caliber guy when he came out of school because he wasn't very highly touted coming out of school.
No. He was.
Not at least nationally, though. He didn't get a lot of.
He was in our state. He was very highly regarded. Scored 20 touchdowns as a senior at Chapman High School. He was known for being able to get in the end zone.
He was only a 2 or 3 star kid, though, I thought.
Does it matter? Do you not listen to these coaches who say, did you not listen to Muschamp or read what Muschamp said at the Belk Bowl? It doesn't matter. He was a player at Chapman High School. He didn't go to combines and things like that. That's not his deal. And so he didn't get rated by these people. And they don't see you. They don't know you. Yeah. He was a heck of a player. But to answer your question, of course, Josh Vann is a guy they signed last year who played this year, who they think is going to be a lot like him as he grows and gets older. And we'll pick back up on that in a moment.
I do want to clarify something about what I was saying about Samuel. I'm not trying to say he wasn't highly regarded here by us in the state of South Carolina, but nationally, his profile wasn't as big as, say, somebody else outside of that purview, and the fact that he did not necessarily have the offers that somebody of his caliber by the end of his career would have had at the beginning there. The fact that most of his offers were regional, the only one he had really outside of our regional area was Vandy. And, South Carolina was probably his best offer at the time. And so from that perspective, yes, he was highly regarded in the state, but not necessarily something that people saw nationally, but they obviously know who he is now.
Okay. I just know that he was a heck of a football player in high school. He was a Shrine Bowler, which makes him among the best in our state. And he was practically unstoppable when he was in high school. So, I mean, yeah, his national perception back then was
non-existent.
Well, I'm looking at if I've got. Let's see. Let me just see if I got the right stuff.
I have it all right in front of me right now. He was not nationally ranked in the position.
What's his name? He wasn't Tyshawn, was he?
Tyshawn.
Yeah, okay. I'm going back looking at my old notes. I didn't have him as Debo. I've got him as Tyshawn Samuel. As a senior, he had 61 catches, 1,184 yards, 15 touchdowns. He had 13 rushing touchdowns and 2 touchdowns on interception returns. So that would be 30 touchdowns. I undersold him. He had 30 touchdowns as a senior. He had 20 touchdowns as a junior, 52 catches, 1,100 yards. His offers were South Carolina, Vanderbilt, North Carolina, NC State, Maryland. Those are the ones at the top of his list at that particular time. Sean Elliott recruited him. He committed to South Carolina on December the 5th of 2013. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. Around here, he was pretty highly regarded. Does he compare? I would say that if you want to look at some of today's recruits and like maybe on South Carolina's team, I mean, Josh Vann was pretty heavily recruited, kind of a regional guy. Brian Edwards was pretty heavily recruited. I'm talking about receivers. Was Debo like that? Maybe not. But in terms of in the States in that particular year and notoriety, he was pretty highly regarded.
Yeah, and Debo's an interesting type of body build. He has receiver quickness and agility, but built like a running back. And some people look at him just to look at him. That guy doesn't look like a.
I know you don't like
to take him.
I know you don't like the stars, but you like to look more at the offers. Think about the offers that Van had, not just South Carolina, but Bama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Michigan, Michigan State, Oklahoma,
Debo
Tennessee.
was not at that level from a recruiting standpoint.
That's
he ran
what I'm saying.
He ran a 4.3. Back then, I had him at a 4.340.
I'm not saying he wasn't a good player. He just was not highly regarded by folks outside of our region.
He
this area.
He wasn't highly regarded.
I'm not arguing that point.
Yeah,
I'm just saying in our state,
I'm just clarifying what I was trying to say.
Yeah, but you've exposed something that we have out there, and that's the fact that Debo was not one of these guys that went to camps, and sometimes they downgrade you because you don't go to their camps.
That's also a savage industry.
I also forgot his name was Tyshawn.
Did you?
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah. I'm
looking at Tyshawn. I see Chapman and Inman and Coach Mark Hodge and all that. I'd forgotten that his name was Tyshawn. All right, 800-956-7266. Vanderbilt and Georgia underway in Athens 4-4. Early tip there.
A lot of people at Stegman Coliseum there.
Hit the phones once again, and we go to Keith and Aiken. Hi, Keith. Welcome to Sports Talk.
Hey, gentlemen. How y'all doing this evening?
Good.
Good. Let's go back to Bentley. Gentleman called, was speaking about that. And, we know what he did in high school. And most people in this state know that he burned a few bridges, but we probably all have. But my question is, what recruiting territory does he have? That's the first question. The second is, when is his contract through? And last question is, in the last 3 years, who has he gotten? And I'll hang up and appreciate it. Enjoy the show.
Bobby,
all right, thank you.
Bobby Bentley's contract is a $400,000 deal. He trying to figure out the term. I want to say he's through next season.
Was he not given an extension? Not this year, but after last year?
I think so.
I think he's on a 3-year deal. Which would leave him 2 years. As far as recruiting goes, just looking through this year's class, he had Jamario Holly committed, and of course that they got away from that one for I guess academic reasons or what have you. Joseph Anderson out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, was his guy this year.
Big get.
Yeah, people like him. Again, the Charlotte area is a lot of his, and he has some spots in South Carolina. Jalen Nichols, the offensive lineman out of Charlotte, is his or was his. Kevion Mullins from Memphis was his, brought him in. So that's 3 right there that he was recruiting in just this class. I could go back and look at the others, but
no,
I'm not going to bore you with all that. But
wasn't his Jim last year, the tackle whose mother went to South Carolina? Didn't he recruit him? Wasn't he
Wanham?
Yeah. No, not Wanham. The defensive lineman.
Bentley's deal
from
up
North
in 2020 because he was part of that across-the-board raise/extension splurge last year for South Carolina.
So how many years did they give him?
They gave him 2 after last season. So this is the
they
second.
Gave him 2 more after last year, which gave him 3 total, right?
No, they all got 2-year deals beginning last year, with the exception of Travaris Robinson, who got a 3-year deal.
Okay. Let's see. As far as last year's class goes, well, he recruited Josh Belk and eventually got him. And let's see who else. Deshaun Fenwick, I believe I have him down as being recruiter of somewhat of record. Remember now, you get involved both in terms of your position and your territory.
Region, yes.
Yeah. So sometimes there's some crossover there. Javon Gwynn was his out of Charlotte. And
listen, the fact that we have
Maxwell Ayama from Murfreesboro, Tennessee was his. He's got his hands on quite a few guys.
I don't understand why we're having to adjudicate the worth
Rick Sandage
of Bobby
That's
Bentley.
the one I was talking about.
Of Bobby Bentley on the staff. He's a valuable portion of the staff. He's as valuable a portion of this staff as anybody, because a lot of the reason why you have him is the reason why you have your 4th-year starting quarterback.
Didn't Auburn give him a call?
Oh, they did. And guess what? He's still here.
Supposedly. That doesn't make any sense to me, though. I'm sorry. I guess maybe family weighed out over everything else. But, I mean, if he indeed had a chance to be the offensive coordinator at Auburn and make double what he's making here.
His son is the starting
I understand that. But you know what? That's only going to be for 1 more year. He could have had a 3 or 4-year contract at Auburn. How many years do they give the guy they hired? A 3-year deal at Auburn? You're talking about stability for the next several years, as stable as you can be at Auburn, doubling your salary, and now you get bumped from running back to tight end coach, which, that doesn't play well outside the offices there, because people look at that as a demotion, and you're making room for Thomas Brown to come in and coach running backs.
The other thing, that's also a vote of no confidence under Gus Malzahn, because of the fact that there is very, very high instability there.
Well, don't you have a feeling?
I think that's the case with any coach.
Don't you
at Auburn.
But don't you have?
Yes.
At Auburn, yeah.
Yeah. Don't you have the feeling that though, even if you're the offensive coordinator,
anywhere,
you're the de facto offensive coordinator is still Gus?
Oh yeah, because he's just still calling the plays.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna attach your wagon to his star. That doesn't sound like a real fun.
$800 grand is $800 grand, or whatever it was.
You can be a tight end coach and kind of go under the radar. In my mind, that's not bad.
All right, 800-956-7266. Not enough time to start with another call. We'll take more calls after the break. We'll do recruiting. Coming up, we're going to hear some comments from Ray Tanner. Will and I, for some reason, ended up at the Board of Trustees conference call today.
I was bored.
That's kind of cool. The Osborne building. And you go upstairs after they have their closed door session.
Get my last name butchered. That was nice.
Go upstairs, and there was about, maybe 4 or 5 trustee members in the office.
There were.
And Ray Tanner, and then everybody else was on a conference call. And we just it took about 5 minutes.
Was Chuck Allen there?
Must be fun spending everybody else's money.
With the former Gamecock Chuck Allen is on the board there.
I want to be a Board of Trustees member. That's what I want.
Going to hear from Frank Martin. We've got recruiting for you. Will Merritt. I'll read you the message that I got from Corey Miller later when we have Corey's not going to be with us. Surprise, surprise.
What a
crickets.
Shock.
Crickets. Where's the crickets?
We'll have Will. Bob Ibach's coming back to tell you about the Clemson football he's giving away. Buddy Pugh as well. We got a bunch more, and your calls again coming up.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Our friend Dr. Sterling Harris has come in with us with the note that we will bring to the table when Will Merritt does join us, because he does remember very, very astutely that last year after losing to Alabama, Will Merritt went silent on us last year. And, of course, this year, Corey Miller is doing something similar. He gave you the excuse of something involving travel.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's an excuse. I think it's a reason. He is traveling back from Cali, and he's with his son. And, his son's now moving on towards the NFL draft. He may have some medical checkups going on with the hamstring. Was it a hamstring that he hurt?
Yes. Doctor's office open past 6 o'clock, I'm guessing?
I guess. I mean, but he may be on a plane somewhere right now. And I suggested we do it on Thursday, but Corey kind of led me to believe that
the answer is no.
His participation for now is over.
Wow.
Is sort of what I'll read the text when we have Will with us in the next hour. All right, 800-956-7266. That's some interesting stuff coming up in recruiting. We'll get to that in a little bit, so stay tuned for that. As we go to Ben in Charleston up next here on Sports Talk. Hello, Ben.
Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
We're good.
All right. So I caught in on the back end of y'all's conversation. I think y'all were talking about Justin Fields, right, going to Ohio State and be able to play immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. So I was listening to Mike and Mike the other morning, and they said on their broadcast, hello?
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah.
All right. They said on their broadcast that if you were in a damaging environment at any school and you request a transfer, a damaging environment either by another student, by a coach, or by faculty or staff, that you will be able to play immediately. And they are claiming that, if you remember, I think it might have been this year or last year, they had the baseball player who has since been, he's gone from that program now. He used a racial slur against Justin Fields.
Right.
And so that is what they're claiming, and that's how they're trying to get him and to be able to play next year. So they're Ohio State. I reckon it can happen.
You're not the first person to reference that. Todd did so as well on Twitter, and I meant to bring that up, and I appreciate you bringing that to our attention, Ben. But in my mind, that is, as I will appropriate this to pro.
No,
it's a weak argument.
The kid is gone. The kid got his position at Georgia and his financial aid pulled, and he's gone from the school. So where's
okay? So where are your conspiracy theorists today? I mean, I'm surprised you're not saying, okay, now they want to see the Big Ten in the college football playoff, and the NCAA realizing that they've got to make the college football playoff more television, more open for more television sets, because the ratings. Though the ratings, ESPN reports the ratings compared to last year were higher, the ratings overall for the national championship game were down compared to 5 years ago, I believe, is what they're saying.
Listen.
And again, are we talking about, with no Big Ten involvement, you're talking about a major part of the country that maybe is not as juiced up about all these Southern teams meeting for the national championship here on a regular basis.
Listen, that justification is not going to be the justification that they use. They'll use the justification.
No. I'm just picking it for his.
Well, I'm just saying
theories of.
I'm saying. I think he and I are in concert. The conspiracy theory is there that they're going to get this guy eligible, and they'll use whatever justification that they need.
Had a weak argument to me, and he got into Michigan.
Well, the thing with him was about the fact that he couldn't win a championship at Ole Miss under his remaining eligibility.
Well, that could have been used against Michigan, because they ain't going to win one day either.
Well, it's also true. That's neither here nor there.
I mean, that is an interesting argument if they're trying to propose that the guy felt uncomfortable because a former student athlete there threw a racial slur at him, but he's already gone. Again, if that makes you uncomfortable and that's reason enough to transfer and have immediate eligibility, look out for that to pop up from time to time.
The reason Justin Fields transferred had nothing to do with his comfort involving racial slurs. It had everything to do with his lack of comfort with the depth chart.
Thank you for your phone call. We continue with your calls as we head to Chuck in Spartanburg. Chuck, welcome to Sports Talk.
Hey, sir. How you doing?
We're good.
Listen, I just want your opinion. Jake Bentley, of course, is back, and he's coming back for his senior season. Just wanted your opinion. He really, well, how so far his career has been. Just want your opinion. Do you think if they would jerk him quickly since I think, what is it, Holinsky, the new freshman?
Mm-hmm. Last we checked.
Do you think they would do that earlier now? And just want your opinion about the quarterback, what's his name, Joyner. And I'll hang up and listen to what you got to say.
All right, thanks very much. I think that Will Muschamp is going into year 4, and I think he realizes that he's got to produce. He's got to compete for the East, even against a very tough slate in 2019. Bentley's going to have every opportunity as the starter, the veteran, to go out there and keep his job. But, he's got to show that he can win. He's done a lot of nice things individually. When he finishes, his numbers are going to be very, very good. But Cole Stout had good numbers at Clemson. I mean, is he going to be Cole Stout, or is he going to be something better than that? And it's about winning games. It's about upsetting people. And by and large, they have not done that with Jake at quarterback. Had a couple of good wins here and there, but I think quarterbacks are measured. That's why Connor Shaw, he's not going to – you go back and look, and Connor Shaw is not going to be found amongst the
all-time leaders,
the statistical leaders at South Carolina, but he is leading in one major category, and that's called victories. And so I think in his case, in Jake's case, he's had to grow with the program. He came in when the program was being rebuilt from the ground up. He took over at midseason. He had to suffer through that. They took a major step forward in year 2, and so it appeared that they were on their way. And this year, it just didn't happen, and probably because I think the biggest handicap for them this year were all the injuries on the defensive side. Yeah, they suffered the injuries on the offensive side the previous year, but the defense was good enough to help them stay in games. This year, losing all those players in the secondary eventually caught up with them. Still, all that being said, he's got to beat an Alabama. He's got to beat a Florida. They had Florida on the ropes, and they let it get away from them. And maybe it was somewhat his responsibility. Well, no, you go back to what Muschamp said. He basically said they were calling the same plays, but the quarterback running those RPOs was got kind of conservative there. And they ran the ball quite a bit and sort of lost their momentum.
This is not meant to slight anybody. Jake Bentley is a starting quarterback at South Carolina. He will be the starting quarterback at the University of South Carolina. He will play 12 games as long as he is not injured. He will be the starting quarterback. This from the man
that said Alabama would beat Clemson. Ka-ching.
I'm just telling you that South Carolina does not have a quarterback. Quit trying to compare this to Deshaun Watson and to Trevor Lawrence. It is not the same situation.
Well,
it's not.
First of all, if what I'm saying is the better quarterback is going to play. He's not married to Jake Bentley if Jake Bentley's not winning.
If Ryan Holinsky
is the better quarterback, he's going to play.
If Ryan Holinsky,
but that's yet to be proven in college.
If Ryan Holinsky is a better quarterback as a freshman than Jake Bentley is as a senior, then that is a sad indictment on what Jake Bentley has been for South Carolina.
Okay, well, you know what?
That's what that means.
It's happened before, and you want to over recruit your positions. You want to recruit the next guy to be better than the guy that's there. And that's what they're hoping. They're hoping if they've got a quarterback in Ryan Holinsky who is better than Jake Bentley, then they've got a really good young quarterback, because Bentley's a good quarterback, but he doesn't have the wins that people are gonna say this guy has done a great job.
He doesn't have the wins because they've been deficient in other areas.
Yeah, he signed up for a rebuild. And this is what happens to a quarterback. But I will say this, and I know this has nothing to do with the argument. Because he signed up for a rebuild, he is better prepared mentally for the NFL than a quarterback that had it easy.
And if he had the kind of tools at his disposal that Trevor Lawrence had at Clemson, maybe we're talking about a different quarterback here.
I'm not going to argue that Clemson has much better tools on the offensive side, though South Carolina's tools aren't bad. And their offense was better this year. But you know what?
You think you wouldn't want to be throwing at Justin Ross?
Are judged by wins.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
Top of the hour break.
Segment 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
All right, coming up in just a moment, the M&M boys here on the Sports Talk on this Wednesday night, just to complete the last caller's questions. He asked about DeCarrion Joyner, and I just don't see a place for DeCarrion Joyner on the offensive side at quarterback, maybe at receiver or safety or something else. He's a talent, but he has been steadfast on wanting to play quarterback unless he has this tremendous growth in the offseason in skills and development, and maybe under Dan Werner he will. But with a senior quarterback coming back who has done what he has done, and a highly touted, highly recruited quarterback coming in, I'm not sure there's room at the end.
The fact that we were hearing about a package for him the entire time and yet didn't really get any part of that package in any meaningful snaps tells you that they don't really feel confident in his ability at the position, at least at this point.
All right, we have M&M boys coming up in just a moment. Let me give you the recruiting report here very quickly. We begin with defensive tackle Jaquez Sorrells, Winter Park, Florida, one of the top prospects left on USC's board for this class. He's narrowed his decision to the Gamecocks, Penn State, and Alabama. Will Muschamp and defensive coordinator Travaris Robinson plan to make their in-home visit with Sorrells and his mom on Sunday, according to the assistant coach at Winter Park and recruiting coordinator Kit Hill. That following weekend, he is going to take his official to USC. Also will take official to Penn State and Alabama the last 2 weekends. Decision, or will sign on February 6th. Might have a decision prior to that. All 3 schools are working him hard, the coach said. He does not indicate a favorite at this point, kind of keeps things close to the vest, looking for the great relationship with the coaches and with the school from an academic standpoint. He's a relationship kind of guy. New USC running backs coach Thomas Brown has contacted running back Jerrion Ely of Jackson, Mississippi, about a possible visit with the Gamecocks after just taking the job officially today. Ely just decommitted from Ole Miss. He has taken an official to Mississippi State, and he is scheduled for Clemson this weekend and Ole Miss on the 25th. Of course, he's also a big-time baseball prospect. 2020 receiver Jalen Hyatt of Dutch Fork has seen his offer list take off with Arkansas and Michigan, the latest additions. They joined Indiana, Virginia Tech, Duke, and Virginia. Of course, he's well known in this state as one of the top prospects in the class, and he's going to get a chance to show off his skills to a wider variety of people at the opening regionals. He was invited to that. Those begin in February across the country. Atlanta is March 24th, and Charlotte is April 28th. He said he's looking forward to that opportunity to show his skills on a big stage. He believes that will increase his stock. Had a great year this year, 71 catches, 1,316 yards, 21 touchdowns, about 19 yards per catch, according to Max Prep's stats. South Carolina, Clemson, he said he is talking to both, talks to coaches from each a lot, and he's looking for more from those two within the next couple of weeks. He's been to Clemson 3 times during this recruiting season, 3 times for games this season. He's going to Virginia Tech on January 19th. Athlete Mark Anthony Richards of West Palm Beach, Florida, unsigned, and he tells us Thomas Brown, now at USC's running back coach, he said that really doesn't impact him at this point. Brown was recruiting him to Miami. He is focused on Florida, Penn State, Auburn, and Miami at this particular time. USC 2020 offensive line commitment Isaiah Walker of Miami was offered by Florida State. And 2020 receiver running back Jaheim Bell of Valdosta, Georgia, was offered by USC. There you go with recruiting. And with that, we get to tonight's edition of the M&M Boys. Let's first of all welcome in former Gamecock star, NFL linebacker, all-around great guy, pastor of pain, Corey Miller.
Uh-oh.
Hello, Corey. Corey. Yeah. Now let's welcome in from Clemson, former star offensive lineman. Stand out in the North-South game back in the day. Probably won his scholarship with that performance.
You're going in the archive.
Well, I was there. I interviewed you. way back then.
I remember.
I think you had Presbyterian. I think you were down to Presbyterian and Pembroke State at that time.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. It was going to be a tough decision.
All right. Well, Corey, let me read well, you saw the message because we were on the same thread with Corey. So I'll just mention here that he said, where the Corey is, he goes, I wish I could be with you guys. He says, well, first he said, every steroid squad gets lucky every now and then. Then he said, wish I could be with you guys. Congratulations to Clemson. They deserve to win. Bama played their worst game in Nick's career.
Oh, give me a break.
We're on to the next chapter with my son, doing some travel with meetings for him. It's been fun, boys.
Whatever. Yeah. This is me with the world's smallest violin.
All right, well, let's talk about the game. You were there, so
give us talk about the game.
Give us your take on just what you saw take place before you there in Santa Clara.
Well, I mean, early on, I mean, it was exactly what I thought it was going to be, Phil. I mean, the first quarter was kind of a slugfest, and then, I mean, Clemson just kind of imposed their will on Alabama. And if you want to look at the game, if you want to look at the game within the game, look at what happened in the trenches. Just watch what happened in the trenches. Clemson was better at the line of scrimmage than Alabama. And everybody wants to talk about, the whole schematic side of things. And schematically, yes, I do think that Dabo was better than Nick Saban was. But in the trenches, I mean, Clemson just was better. I mean, they were more physically dominant than Alabama at the line of scrimmage for 2 of the last 3 quarters. That's why they won the ball game.
Did that surprise you?
It didn't surprise me that they held their own. It surprised me when Alabama gave up. That did surprise me. Right before the half when, Alabama didn't go for points and they just ran the clock out. And at the end of the third quarter when Alabama chose to punt when they should have gone for it, and the fake field goal, all those things, that just shows me that Alabama had nothing for us. I mean, we were just the better team.
Mm-hmm.
So in your mind, Will, just spinning this forward, since we've had a couple of days to digest this, does this make Clemson surpass Alabama, or has Alabama fallen to the field? Where do you see the hierarchy?
I don't think you can do that yet. I mean, obviously y'all have seen every highlight and every stat on TV. I mean, since that we started the college football playoff, I mean, we've been pretty equal. But the one thing that I love about our program versus their program is that even when we were getting beaten by them, we never gave up. I saw them give up. I really saw Alabama just give up against us, and that was fun to watch.
Tell me this, Will, because you were there in the stadium. It seemed to me from the television, and this is when I said, uh-oh. When Alabama had to settle for that field goal and took a 16-14 lead, I said, this is Clemson's game. Alabama can't punch an in from here. I think it looks like that whole Clemson sideline just caught on fire right after that.
Well, I'm going to say I thought the game was won after the end of the first quarter. I thought we at the end of the first quarter, and you're talking about that field goal, and you're exactly right. Our sideline, when we thought that we had them to 3 instead of 7 every single time they had the football, I feel like that we knew we had them beaten. And our fans felt that way. And you could sense that from the sideline too as well. I mean, you look around the sideline and you look up and everybody's standing up and just going, they have nothing for us. And what you just brought up, that field goal, they knew they could not beat us when they had to get 3 instead of going for 7.
All right, hang on, Will. We're going to hit a break here. Your phone's kind of breaking up, so we're going to drop the line and reconnect with you. Sounds like it was cracking up and starting to peter out on us. So we'll get back to you, Will Merritt, part of the M&M gang here on Sports Talk. Be right back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Still plenty to get to here on Sports Talk. We have yet to hear from Ray Tanner from today's staff changes for South Carolina football. We also want to try and give you some of Frank Martin's comments after the big victory for the Gamecocks last night in men's hoops. They play Saturday against Missouri. Clemson hoops tonight against Syracuse, and also a great opportunity coming for you later this segment to get some big memorabilia connected to Clemson's national title victory.
All right, let's wrap it up with Will Merritt here representing the M&M boys coming off the Tigers' national championship win over Alabama. So, again, I know for Clemson Nation, it's a big, big time parade coming up on Saturday, another celebration in the stadium. That stuff never gets old. 3 key defenders announced departures today. Nothing surprising there. And I guess waiting on Furrow to make his announcement. I mean, he's got to be leaving.
AB as well, Brian as well.
I think he's going to be leaving as fast as Corey Miller is from this conversation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, there's nothing for him to come back for.
He's going to be as absent next year as Corey, Cleveland Farrell is, because I mean, let's face it, Corey's not showing up for one reason. He's scared to death of where our program is.
Mm-hmm.
You trying to say you're not? You're trying to say you're not cycling out like some might have suggested?
I'm not cycling out. I mean, there's only one of us on the phone right now. Where's Corey? Yeah,
he's in the air. He's in the air somewhere.
He's a scared little puppy. That's where he's at. You know why? Because he's getting his tail handed to him every single year.
All right. So, what is 2019 going to be for Clemson?
Same thing. You're going to get your ass handed to you.
There's no.
No. I'm not talking about South. I'm just talking about in general for the season. What do you expect?
No, in general.
Yeah.
For the season.
Thing.
You're going to get your ass handed to you.
No. I mean, Clemson in 2019. What kind of year are they going to have?
Same thing. I mean, are you going to bet against this? Who bets against this team?
Yeah.
You mean to tell me there is not a single area or game of concern for you next year?
Of course, but I bet against our team. I mean, I would say that this staff and this group of players can do the exact same thing they did again this year, and New Orleans next year will be right back there. I mean, at what point in time do you bet against us? Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense to bet against us.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't disagree. I mean, you look at the schedule for next year.
Of course, you can't disagree with that.
You got to go to Keenan Stadium next year. That's tough.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
But Mac Brown,
you want to bet against us on that game?
You do have to go to Syracuse now. That could be a little dangerous up there at Syracuse, as Clemson has learned.
They believe they got better barbecue up there with Dinosaur Barbecue.
Yeah,
it's weird.
And you do have Texas A&M up and coming. They'll be tough at your place.
Sure.
You do have to come.
Jimbo's going to do a great job.
Revenge
would
game.
You bet against, would you bet with Jimbo and Texas A&M against this program right now?
No, I wouldn't.
Exactly.
No, not with all those offensive players. I mean, the offense, except for Falcinelli and Hyatt, pretty much returns intact.
Name somebody next year that you think can beat this program.
No,
how about that?
I would say zero right now.
How about, by the way, that opening game on the SEC Network, a Thursday night for the coronation of Clemson? Little weird situation there. Short week to prepare for Georgia Tech. Little weird. No. Revamped program. No. Okay. I'm just making sure.
Do you hear what you're saying?
Yeah, I know.
Crickets.
I know. Think about. I mean, just play that back in your head for a second.
I know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You going to be at the parade Saturday?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going to be out front.
I mean,
helping.
They're giving you a float.
March down the Avenue of Champions.
I'll be with all of my old teammates. I mean, during my generation.
Is there any truth to the rumor that Dabo will be coming in on a thesaurus? To show his prowess.
On a unicorn being, coming down with a, with like white wings around him. I don't know.
Gamecock fans also want to know if there's a bottle of Osterine float in the parade as well.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, guys, I mean, you just can't bet against this program right now. You just can't do it. I mean, they're just too good.
Will, we thank you, my man. Enjoy the ride again with the Tigers. We appreciate you being on with us all season long. Look forward to doing it next year as well.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. All right, there you go. Will Merritt, half of the M&Ms. We're going to try and get Corey on with us at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I got to say something here. I was just going back and looking, and I have to apologize a little bit to Jake Bentley because as I went back and looked at last year, he does have a few good victories. The Michigan win, of course, was a good one. I go back and see the anytime South Carolina beats Tennessee, I don't care about the shape of the Tennessee program. That's a good win for South Carolina. I'm not going to diminish that whatsoever. And beating Florida last year was a good win. Even though Florida wasn't great, I still say anytime South Carolina gets a win over a Tennessee or a Florida or a Georgia or a Clemson, regardless of the shape of their program, that's a good win for South Carolina. So I do want to modify a little bit what I was saying there. He does have some good wins, but I do think that going into this last year that if he's not the better quarterback, if Walensky shows in camp or at some point he Bentley is not moving the team and scoring touchdowns and they are struggling, I don't think Muschamp's going to hesitate to put the young guy in if he's ready.
Keep telling you, if it's because of that, that tells you more about Bentley than it does about Walensky.
I was just thinking about what Will Merritt said about Clemson, because I heard Alabama fans say, with Tua next year, nobody be able to stop us. With that defense and Tua, nobody can beat us.
There is a brief note that I do want to pass along in the basketball front from South Carolina. This is something that was said from Frank Martin on Columbia Radio earlier today. TJ Moss is 99% sure he's going to redshirt. That's from an interview that took place today on the Columbia Radio flagship, and that Jermaine Couisnard's status for the season remains to be determined. But Martin did clarify the guard will be fully eligible next year. So, and again, we also asked that of Ray Tanner at the meeting. He said, again, that's completely out of the control of his office.
Let's jump to Bob Iback up in Chicago. Bob was with us last night, and he's back tonight to tell you about those Clemson footballs he's ready to put in your hands. Bob.
Hey, how you doing tonight?
Good.
Excuse me, my voice is going because we've had cold weather up here all day long, and it's been like in the teens. And
don't tell that to him. He's on his way up to your area.
I'll be there this weekend, my man. You better warm it up. I'm bringing some Southern
Well,
heat.
I tell you what, I know what is hot, and that is Clemson football. And I hope you can deal with my voice a little bit tonight, but I'll do the best I can. We started out with 5,000 of these Clemson officially licensed footballs that are raising monies for Extra Yard for Teachers, which is just a great charity. They've been around now for 5 years, and we've raised, over $2.4 million now for charity in the last 5 years. And we've sold probably about 1/3 of the collection coming into the show tonight. These are beautiful footballs made by Wilson. They're $99 each, and you get a numbered certificate of authenticity with them. And what you'll find on the white panels of the football, one of the panels has the official college football playoff logo, the Clemson logo with the real nice orange tiger paw on there, the ACC title logo, and also the Cotton Bowl logo. So you get all that on that one part of the football. It'll say national champions, and excuse me, it's limited to just 5,000. The second panel will showcase all 15 games. You'll go game by game from the very first game of the season with the date of the game, the opponent, and the final score. And it's a real nice way to kind of look back on the season years from now. You'll know exactly how the whole season unfolded. And it's the first time ever, as everybody knows, that a college football team has gone 15-0. So it's a really nice commemorative. It's increased in value because no other college football team has ever gone 15-0. So if you'd like to order these, they're $99 each. We set up 2 ways that you could order these Clemson commemorative championship footballs to raise monies for Extra Yard for Teachers, which the monies will stay in the state to help out school teachers. The toll-free number is 1-800-345-2868. That's 1-800-345-2868. Or go to the website, NICOsports.com, and you spell it NIKCO sports.com.
All right, Bob, thank you, man. We're going to give your voice a rest there. We'll hear from you again tomorrow night, and we'll be back. Buddy Pugh and more coming up here on Sports Talk.
drastic transition, Clemson football. But we did get some positive news this week for South Carolina State football as our friend Buddy Pugh, head coach of South Carolina State, is at least back for one more season, Corn.
Or maybe longer. Who said just one?
I said at least one more season.
But I'm asking Coach, like, who said just one, huh?
Nobody, Phil. How are y'all?
We're good. Like I said to you, it's good to have you back to kick around for another season at least. So congratulations. I know that it was kind of an interesting deal going back to last summer because at one point you said, yeah, this is going to be it. Then you said, at least on our show, no, I'm not so sure. We'll see how it plays out. And, of course, throughout the season. And it's played out where they want you back. You want to be back, and you got a chance to do some good things next year.
We do. We got to the point where I kind of fell in love, with this little team that I had that was kind of ragtagging around a little bit. They started playing pretty good, and, it just kind of gives you hope that you could be pretty good in the future. So I want to kind of see if these guys can do what I think they can do. Yeah,
I know you finished strongly after kind of a slow start. What gives you the hope in terms of the personnel? What gives you the hope?
Well, we ended up playing, I guess, maybe, 8 or 10 freshmen. I think we had 24 guys that actually played a good bit that were either freshmen or redshirt freshmen. And, anytime you're starting to have success, with that younger, with that amount of young guys, then, it gives you, room to think that you got a chance.
South Carolina State head coach Buddy Pugh joining us. Take us through, I guess, your mindset, Coach, because from the standpoint of where we thought before the season, there was a lot of uncertainty based on your status and kind of what got to this point, and I guess where do you feel that the program is right now, and what would you like to see as far as the negotiations for your contract and how long you'd like to stay?
Well, I'm not exactly sure, as how long I want to stay. What we've said at this point is that we want to go through this year. We want to see how it goes. I like the idea of having the opportunity to kind of see things as they go. I don't want to hang around here if it's not going good, kind of get in the way of the university advancing or the program advancing. And at the same time, if things are going really well, then at that same time, we want to have the option of continuing. So I think that's kind of how it works. We think that we're at a point now where, we're starting to kind of turn the corners of the university again. A lot of positive things happening in our university. Starting to grow a little bit again. We starting to be able to go out and recruit a little bit again. We've been in state, I guess, for the last few years where we hadn't done any out-of-state recruiting at all.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at the point now where it looks like we can expand our recruiting boundaries a little bit into the Georgias and the Floridas like we used to when South Carolina State was really good. So if we can do that, coupled with the fact that, that we got a pretty good group of young guys here already, then we think we got a shot to be pretty good.
Is there any talk of a head coach in waiting or heir apparent so that particular mission could be furthered and that, the transition, once you do decide to step away, is as smooth as it can be?
Not yet, but now, there are some guys on the staff that are deserving. And, we've talked a little bit about that kind of scenario, but at this point, we just kind of waiting to see, where we go, because, if it goes really well, then I think everybody's kind of deserving. But if it's going poorly, then at the same time, I don't know if you'll give a guy on the staff a shot. So we'd like to try to see how it goes and kind of keep our cards close to the vest, before we actually make a call of that kind.
Well, you're in a tricky situation, Coach, because have you been able to keep kids interested in South Carolina State? Were you able to somehow strongly suggest to their coaches or whatever, hey, I'll be back next year? And do you not want to see maybe make up some decision maybe before March or April that you may want to coach more than 1 year so you can keep that pipeline of recruiting going?
Well, you get some of those kinds of thoughts, Tom, but what actually happens is the level of young men that we recruit in most cases are guys that are developmental guys. Most of them are more excited about coming with us than the next possible offer, regardless, who the coach is. So you don't get quite the same level of nuance when you start talking about the recruiting process at our level that you do, at some of the big schools. So most of the guys Darius Leonard, just to give an example, was a 6 foot, 185-pound guy, coming out of high school. He didn't even know if he could play college football. So he thought he was pretty good. But a lot of our guys are those kinds of guys. So when you're recruiting in that kind of spectrum, I think you get a little different kind of way of actually looking at the whole process that way.
Speaking of Darius Leonard, and he'll be on display this weekend, what a year he's had. How much does that help you and your staff when you guys now go out and you're venturing back out into other areas, when you can cite a Darius Leonard as the latest product of your program who's made it big in the NFL?
Well, all of those kinds of guys, are brought up at, from time to time. If you're in a defensive tackle's house, then we're talking Javon Hargraves. If we're in a defensive back's house, we're talking, Raphael Bush and some of those guys. So you get a little bit different kind of thought, South Carolina State-wise, for every position. There's all kinds of guys out there. We do think that we do a great job of developing our guys and teaching them how to play the game. They get a chance to be, pretty hard-nosed and understand that you got to, work and spend time studying the film and all the kind of things that you got to do. So we think that we do an above-average job of developing our guys, preparing them for the league. But then on the same thought, we've got guys like, the Aaron Hales of the world and the Rugers that are, are in med school and have gotten out and become doctors. So we got guys, that do it all. But we just seem to, get more notice for the NFL guys that we turn out from year to year.
And one last thing, you mentioned, you're going to get back out into some recruiting areas outside the state. Is the money better? Do you have more financial resources now to be able to do that? Were you being handicapped for a couple of years as far as the money you could spend in recruiting?
Well, we've got enough to get out and do what we need to get done. And, our university does the very best that they can, under the circumstances. And then, we have some people that actually, support our program in a way where, they give us some help doing some of those kinds of things also. So between the money that our university is able to afford us and then the money that we can raise, we get enough to get it done. So we're excited about the fact that we get the chance to get out a little bit wider, a little bit farther away from the university's center base right now. And, we think that the finances should not be an issue.
Is your staff still together?
Everybody's back, and hopefully we can continue to get them all back. There's always a little bit of a period after recruiting where you get a guy who gets a little bit of antsy, but it was a nice little deal that we had this past year. We had Bennett Swagger running our offense, and Deshaun Goddard and some of those kind of guys. Johnson Saxon ran our defense, and then our special teams were pretty good too. So, I think we've got pretty much everybody coming back. I hadn't heard of anybody here recently. Do you know something I don't know?
No, I really don't. I'm just wondering because coaches come and go, as you know.
Yeah,
I hadn't heard anything. No.
I'm throwing my hat in the ring for a quality control position on the.
Hey, who's your money game this year? Where are you going? You got one or two?
I was talking to a guy named Charlie Strong yesterday. I think we got a chance to go down and play him for a second, and looks like we're gonna go down and play South Florida.
Oh,
later in the year. So I think we play them game 3. We open with Wofford at home.
Oh, okay.
And we play South Florida game 3 down in Tampa. I don't know who game 2 and 4 are yet. 1 and 3 are.
Well, that's enough right there to worry with Wofford and South Florida. So, listen.
That's enough.
We are glad that you're back for another year. Look forward to at least one more year, maybe longer, and we look forward to talking Bulldog football with you all year round. We thank you, sir.
Thank you, Phil. Look forward to seeing you guys.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Buddy Pugh. Going down to South Florida, play Charlie Strong and company. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, that's a very good program that Charlie's got. They started off really good this year. Then they suffered a couple of losses there, didn't they, as the season wore on?
Yeah.
Kind of dropped out of the top 25.
But going down to South Florida better than going across the country to Arizona and then coming back and taking on a Texas A&M team. By the way, we got a freshman you have to play, Johnny Manziel.
I know. Yeah, Buddy likes to say he helped discover Johnny Manziel. All right, that'll be another year at least for Buddy Pugh at South Carolina State. That's good stuff, and we'll be right back.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
We are a tad behind, but it doesn't mean we would want to be able to at least catch ourselves up. We did want to at least bring you some of the comments from Gamecocks Director of Athletics Ray Tanner after the shuffling in the staff of South Carolina head football coach Will Muschamp. They hired Thomas Brown, the former Miami assistant, to be the new running backs coach at the Gamecock level. Also, Bobby Bentley, who was the running backs coach a year ago and the last couple of years, moves to tight ends coach. That means that Pat Washington is no longer on staff at South Carolina. No other staff changes at this moment, so that at least puts to rest for the moment the rumor of Lance Thompson's departure, although things still could happen according to what Ray told us this morning. Still not putting out that particular rumor, at least from that perspective. But here's a little bit of what Ray Tanner had to say this morning to us at the Osborne Building on the USC campus.
Well, it's important that we have a new running backs coach on board, and the recruiting cycle kicks back in, so he needs to be on the road. So there was some urgency necessary to move forward as quick as we could, and I'm grateful to the board that they were accessible today, and we had the contract approved.
What happened to the old running backs coach?
He is moving to the tight ends position.
And what's happening to Coach Washington?
He is pursuing other opportunities.
Have you had a chance to meet Coach Brown at all? And do you have any sense of sort of how the process was that they kind of landed on him?
I can't tell you about the process. I've had a chance to meet him, and certainly I was impressed. A high-energy young man that has been around a lot of great running backs in his time and been in a number of different schools. So I'm excited to have he and his family in Columbia and ready to go to work.
What was the, I guess, from the standpoint of where Wolford was, why did his contract, I guess, not get renewed now as it did with the other guys who got extended earlier?
I think it's sometimes it's just a timing situation on what you're actually working on at the time, and some opportunities that he might have had in front of him that didn't. I don't feel that he pursued, but there were some opportunities out there for him, and we made a decision to move today.
What are the expectations from where you sit now after this past season, 7 wins? Where do you think this program needs to go now?
I don't think your work is ever done. I figured that out in my 7 years. It's ever changing, and there's going to be things moving forward that you need to do. We made a lot of progress, not only in football, and you're referring to the opening of the Long Family Operations Center, which is certainly among the best in the country, if not the top 5. We're putting sports in a position to be successful. We play in a difficult league, but the opportunities exist for success. And, we were all disappointed in the bowl game, the results of the bowl game. But I think you also look at the big picture, and when Coach Muschamp got here, the state of the program when he arrived, you would say he's had 3 recruiting classes. That's probably not exactly accurate, because he really has probably had 2, and we've still got some work to do. But I believe in who he is and how he leads and his staff. I think we've got a lot of other good coaches in our program as well. And I've been in college athletics my entire life. It's not always about being first to win in a championship, but what's important is you have an opportunity to do that. And that's what we've tried to create administratively. Dr. Pastidi's tenure and our board is, let's position for some of those great days to happen. Coach Staley was the last one to win a national championship. Her first 2 or 3 years here were difficult, but it happened. And so that's the key is get in position. What does that mean? That means good people and great facilities and being able to recruit. And I don't think it's magic, but it's necessary that you satisfy those ingredients.
All right, from Ray Tanner and Gamecock football to Frank Martin and Gamecock basketball, coming off a win last night against 14th ranked Mississippi State. A good performance by the team, a great performance by Mike Kotsar, who had a career-high 25 points, also had 9 boards. Here is Frank Martin talking about his big guy.
Really proud of Kotsar. I've been fighting him in a good way, to believe in himself. And so I'm really happy that he played with that aggression and that confidence. making big. It's not, you know, some guys score 25, but they score a lot like middle section of the game, and then they disappear. That dude made a big time step down jump shot from the baseline, big time offensive rebound tip-in, made his free throws. I mean, all that with the game in the balance. That's credit him. You know, we need him to keep growing. Absolutely need him to keep growing.
Frank Hassani was in here and kind of joked that maybe the concussion kind of knocked something loose in Coach Sarr, and that's why he played so well. I mean, you've mentioned you've been fighting him, but what do you think has been the problem? Just a confidence thing?
Yeah, that's just he's not an aggressive personality. He's passive, and you know, he's happy being you know, like his freshman year. He was just the fifth guy. You know, but he's got so much more ability mentally, physically than that. And getting him to just believe in himself. That's been the biggest challenge. You know, like early in the game, he missed some shots. And I didn't say a word to him because he kept shooting. You know, in the past, when he misses a shot or two, he stops. And then he passes up good shot. This is the thing about basketball. It's really hard to get a good shot. When you got a good shot, you have to shoot it. And he'd pass up good shots, and then now the defense resets, and it's hard again. And but you know, it's I'm really happy for him. He deserved to have a game like this against not against a bad team, against a really good team.
Touched on the point I was going to bring up. He started out a little bit slow offensively. Were you surprised that he stayed as aggressive, or is that something that you envision with the way you practice the last couple of days?
John, I wish I had that answer. I'm just happy he stayed aggressive. That's what I've been begging him to do. I'm literally like yelling at him, hugging him, showing him film, begging him. Like Mike can be a guy that can make a lot of money playing basketball. He's 260 pounds, moves his feet, can run. Goes in the weight room. He is strong as an ox. He's not a like lights out shooter, but this year he's worked at becoming a good shooter. You know, I just want him to be aggressive, man. You're too big and strong, too talented. You're too mobile to be passive. And I hope that this gives him confidence, because now it becomes like when teams really, really want to focus in on Chris, like obviously Mississippi State was. It gets real hard to have to deal with both of them dudes in there. And you know, hopefully it's something that he can continue.
All right, Frank Martin, the Gamecocks off until Saturday, 1 o'clock. Missouri comes to Columbia. M-I-Z?
I'm not doing it.
M-I-Z.
I thought it was M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S.
Charles.
Mickey Mouse.
In charge in Charleston. Hello, sir. Welcome in.
Hey, real quick, I think you crushed the time.
Yes,
sir. But I just want to say to you, a couple of years ago, I'll never forget it, I was on my way to Bible study, and you said that Dabo Swinney was amassing talent in Clemson to win a national championship.
I said that?
Yes, you did. You did. Now, you had no idea how much I laughed.
Oh.
I'm being serious. And I said, nah, you get out of here. He's crazy. What is he talking about? You know, I'm not laughing anymore. And the thing is, Clemson ain't going away.
No.
Not anytime soon.
Not only did he
I wouldn't be
amass,
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in a national championship game next year.
not only did he amass national title talent for one, he got two.
And more. He said when they got one, they'll get multiple.
Not one, not two, not three.
It's not only talent. It's willed his personality on that team.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State amasses a lot of talent. Michigan amasses a lot of talent. They ain't winning no championship.
Not bad for a head coach.
Well, as soon as Ohio State, with their new coach, figures out how not to lose games they should win, they'll be right there.
They'll have another
Clemson
clunker.
figured that out. Clemson figured out how to think about the close calls or lose at the right time. They lose to Pittsburgh, but everybody else lost that weekend. They didn't really get hurt.
You mean Ryan Day has to figure out how not to Clemson too soon?
Not using that word.
Sorry.
Not using that word. And it's Clemsoning, if you want to be accurate.
How not to Clemson like it's a verb, I mean.
Yeah. All right, that'll do it. Have a great night. See you tomorrow. Turn off your YouTube.